Thank you so much, Chaz, for being our guest speaker this month and talking about habits. I will turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I love this topic. I never thought that I'd be somebody that would speak on this, but I'll get into my journey into habits and how they can make a difference in your everyday life and in every hour in some cases. So I'm going to dive in. First, hi, this person talking, I'm Chaz Ross Monroe. I have 15 years of AEC experience. I am currently the manager of professional services at Courtney. I've implemented more than 100 AEC firms with Courtney, and I wrote Sink or Swim Faster. And it's basically just a guide to help those that are starting off in the AEC industry doing marketing, and just gives you kind of an onboarding plan and walks you through the basics of the job. So I wrote that a couple of years ago. And yeah, this picture, it took a team of highly skilled professionals for that look, because other than that, this is what you get in your day-to-day. I mean, this is, but I'm happy that I had a team to help me with that. So before we start getting into habits, let's kind of talk about what was the factor that made me get into this kind of area and start focusing on this a little bit more. It's this guy right here. This is Mikey. His real name is actually Mycroft. And for those of you that might be Sherlock Holmes fans, it's Sherlock's older, smarter brother. So this is Mycroft. And, I really thought that I was good managing my time. I thought I was really good at getting things done. I thought I was pretty effective at that for the most part, until I had my son. And then I lost a lot of my time. Imagine that. But what I realized is that I wasn't as good at managing my time and managing my habits as I thought I was, because previously I could, if I, didn't get something done, then that's fine. I would just work a little bit longer. My days would be kind of like Courtney, would be like 12-hour days, and it wasn't a big deal. But of course, after I had my son, I realized that approach was not working for me. I didn't have all those hours in the day, and I had to figure out a way to get some of those hours back. So from a recommendation from a good friend, I got this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I have to tell you, it has been one of the best books I've read this year. It is fantastic. If COVID taught me anything, it was how to better manage my habits. And this book is a big part of that. So I'm going to jump into a little bit more about this book and what it's taught me and how it's impacted my day-to-day and how I'm able to get more out of my day. Thank you in part to this book. All right. So did you know if you get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time that you're done? And if you think about that for a moment, it's not 37% better. It is 37 times better. It's exponential, just 1% each day, and you can get that much better. And I read that and I was like, oh yeah, where do I sign up? How do I do this? And I think in my previous role, I was an implementation specialist / professional services consultant. It was my job to implement people at Courtney and implement firms at Courtney. And everybody wants that silver bullet. They think if I get this product, if I get this service, then I will solve this problem that I have. And from this book, another big aha moment for me is when Mr. Clear talks about, when you, if you just do 1%, just a little bit better every single day, the impacts to your life are huge. Like, you can really make big changes. And it's not about the goal. That's the other thing. So it's not just about like, I want to become better at managing my data. I want to run a marathon. I want to, automate my entire job so that I never have to do any of this stuff again. It's not so much the end result as it is the system of processes that you put in place to achieve that goal. So if you can start focusing on just those little habits each and every single day, the results become very real and happen, you start to notice some major progress as little as like 1% a day. So one thing to start considering is, do your current habits align with who you are or who you want to be? So the best way to make a change, or a substantial change, or the best way to move in a different direction, is to ask yourself if your habits are aligning with what you believe in, and so, if you want to get healthier, maybe you want to work out a little more, you want to make better choices with your diet and that kind of thing. Maybe you may need to start asking yourself, what would Jillian do? I don't know if you guys are a Biggest Loser fan, but I love Jillian Michaels. I think she's fabulous and gorgeous. And before I pick up that Halloween candy and start sifting through looking for the peanut butter M&Ms, I might ask myself, is this what Jillian would do? And chances are it's no. So if you can start visualizing the kind of person that does those habits that you're envisioning for yourself, then you can start to align yourself with that vision, and it makes it a lot easier to make those choices every single day. So if you want to get better with your data, or if you want to get better with your CRM, you might be asking yourself, what would Courtney, our data-loving marketer, do?
Oh, you're so sweet.
So that is, it seems like, one of those choices in your mind, like and using that power of visualization, it really can help you start to create better habits for yourself. But there's also something else that you can focus on. There are 4 key laws that Mr. Clear talks about in his book regarding how to make better habits. The first is to make it obvious. The second is to make it attractive. The third is to make it easy. And the fourth is to make it satisfying. So let's jump into each of these a little bit more. So the first thing to consider is that you need to really start to become aware of what you're actually doing. So many of you already have a morning routine. You get up, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, you kind of have your routine. But one of the key things to making changes in your habits is to first look at what you're doing, and in some cases even writing it down. So creating a log of what you're doing and looking at your time, how you're spending it, what you're spending it on. Now, if some of you live by your calendar, another thing that you need to do is you need to start putting it, if you want to start a new habit, is make the time in your day for that habit. So this formula that in the book is listed is, I will do this behavior at this time in this location. And if you can really clarify that and make it that obvious, in your calendar, the chances of you completing that habit are much higher. So, I have a goal every day to, I want to read 30 minutes a day. I'm always looking for new content, new things to, help me grow in my career. So I'm always trying to find that time, but I usually block it on my calendar. I'm going to read 30 minutes here. And, sometimes, especially, before I had kids, like I'd have, it was like I had my work calendar, and then whatever the heck I did after that, it didn't matter because, I had all this free time. Now it's like even a lot of my hours are blocked, after work, before work, like all of that kind of stuff. But really being specific in when you plan to carry out a certain activity is really powerful. The other tip that I really like a lot, whoops, sorry, I've got my coworkers there, is stack the habit. So what this means is maybe there's something that you're already doing. So maybe, when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, one of your habits is, I want to start learning Spanish. And so maybe you start as you're brushing your teeth, then you put on, your Spanish tape, and you're listening to your Spanish tape as you're brushing your teeth. So it's a cue for you to work on that other habit based off of something that you're already doing. And if you stack that habit, then it's easier to get that new habit more into your daily process. Another tip is environment. So if there's a reason when you go to the grocery store that certain items are placed at eye level, people pay for that placement. There have been you guys, for many of you that work, with designers or with architects and that kind of thing, your environment plays a really big role in how you feel about a space and what you do in that space and that kind of thing. So another aspect to being successful in generating or creating a new habit is to create the environment where you can be successful. So, if you're trying to eat healthier and that kind of thing, then you definitely want to make sure you don't have all that Halloween candy still in your pantry, like I do. Like, I really need to make a choice to get rid of my Halloween candy because it is like still there front and center. I even have it eye level, so I probably need to work on that. But, you can even change, like if maybe you have a really bad, Target habit, and every time you pass a Target, you're like, I got to go in there and I've got to buy something. Like, I see Target, I see the bullseye, I got to go buy something. well, pick a different route to get home. So really be careful of your environment, how you make the choices that how and where you make those choices. If you can focus a little more on your environment where you make some of those bad decisions, sometimes that can come in handy, but also creating a more welcoming environment. So kind of what Courtney was talking about before our training session, she wants to focus more on meditation. So she created a space for that, in eyesight, where she can see it. And she's constantly reminded of the fact that, she needs to do that. So making sure that you have the right environment is really going to help you with making it obvious too. Any questions about that? All right, so let's move on to law 2. Make it attractive. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can make things attractive. One way is, maybe that I need to get into my system and I really need to do some data cleanup. We're getting ready to do our holiday mail out, and I know our addresses aren't correct and I really need to get on this. I don't know about you, but I know I want to just dive right into work on that project for 3 hours, and I've got the time in my day. It's super easy to do that. Nobody says that. Everybody is like, oh, I know I need to do it, but I don't want to. So maybe I'm going to work on this for 15 minutes before I get my coffee. Every day, I'm going to make a choice before I start working on this mailing list. I'm just going to spend 10 minutes cleaning some data. And when I clean that data, then I can get my coffee. And you know what? You're going to clean your data because you sure as heck want that coffee. And if you kind of dangle that carrot, now going in and cleaning your data is going to make it more attractive, because once you do it, you get your coffee. And I love my coffee. Another thing too, the reason that I have Facebook on here is, I sometimes get a little addicted to Facebook, and I have to set goals for myself tasks for myself. Like, once I do this, okay, then I can check Facebook, or once I do this, then I can check Instagram. So figuring out a way to make the habit that you're trying to, get better at, reward yourself is going to make it so that you're going to want to do that new habit a little bit easier. If I do 10 push-ups, then I can check Facebook. If I do 10 push-ups, then I get the coffee. Whatever you need to do to motivate yourself to do that action, just find a way to make it attractive, to make it more rewarding. Another thing to keep in mind too, that makes new habits attractive is, we live in a culture, and we work in cultures, where we want to fit in. We want to find groups that match us and that we align with. And if you have aspirations of being better at, managing your data, do you have a network that can support that? Do you have people that you could brag to and be like, hey, I worked on this project, and, is maintaining good data, is that rewarded like at your firm? So if you think of groups that you want to be a part of, or, all of that can all kind of weigh into making something more attractive. So, and also that identity that you were thinking of, like, is this more like what Jillian would do? Is this what fit people would do? Is this what, so finding those groups that align with a new habit that you're trying to create can really make it more attractive and make it so that you're more willing to work on it and to do it. All right, the third law, make it easy. So, I'm sorry, a lot of these are health examples, but they're kind of the easiest. But if you want to work out, you want to make that your habit, then start putting on your gym clothes before you leave the office. When you guys used to go work, I don't know how many of you now are remote, but when you used to go work in the office, or when you were working in the office, if you can make it easy, it seems like half the battle sometimes is just putting on your shoes, putting on your shoes and getting out the door for a walk, putting on your shoes. And, if you can reduce the friction before making that choice, then the chances of you being successful with that new habit increase dramatically. So, if it's the same thing, like, with your data and cleaning your data, it's really hard to clean your data if you don't have your CRM open. I know we all get into our day-to-day, but it's like sometimes, we'll close it down, we won't have it up or whatever. It's a lot easier to make changes to things as you're working on, if you have your CRM up and running, every day. You'd be surprised how many people, especially when I'm onboarding new clients, I'm like, so, you've been working the system? Yeah. Do you have it open when you first walk in? When you turn on your Outlook, do you also open up your CRM? They're like, not yet. Like, okay, you need to start doing that. So it gets a lot easier to, figure out what it's going to take to make it easy for you to continue with that habit. practice is also important. So, I've got my little weightlifter guy here, and, reps are important. Reps are more important than time. So if you're trying to build a new habit, it's the amount of times that you do it more than it's the actual time spent doing the activity. So really doing those short bursts of, cleaning your data for 10 to 15 minutes a day versus I'm going to wait until I have 3 hours to go work on it. You're probably never going to find those 3 hours. And really what you're looking to do is create a system so that you're always cleaning your data, so that it's part of your process, so that it becomes your habit. It's not just this goal that you're setting that one day it will be there. It's every day you're working little by little to build that habit so that it's, I plan on brushing my teeth once a week. It's not, I practice, I'm going to plan on practicing good hygiene, one time a week. It's not good enough. It's, I think a lot of these habits and when you see people like performing at a high level, it's because every day they're spending a few minutes working on these habits that are really hard, but they've built them into their process. And that's why ultimately they have really big successes. It's a lot of little tiny habits. It's a lot of little choices that make huge differences. So if you can make the habit that you're trying to create easy in any kind of way, or make the lead up to it easy, working out's not very fun sometimes, it's kind of hard, but if you can at least build into your process, I'm going to make it easy to get started, then you're going to have more success getting it done. Don't make yourself think about it. Don't give yourself the opportunity to work your way out of it by outthinking it. So make it as easy as you can. All right, and the fourth law is make it satisfying. So if this new habit that you're trying to create, or if this new habit that you are creating is something that if it's something that's going to be ultimately satisfying, then the chances of you doing it are definitely going to increase. So you'll see here, I've got this little habit tracker app that I actually use. I am I think it was Stacy who says she emails her list to herself every day and then she crosses off. I love that idea. I think you might like this. So this app, basically, if you tap it, it turns it a color. So these are, on the right-hand side, you can see, it says today has gratitude list, steps, make the decision, it has all these things. As you tap them, it changes the color. So it's a colorful to-do list. And to me, if I cross something off the list, it makes it satisfying. I really want to make sure that, I'm checking my data. I'm going to, tap that. I want to make sure I get my 30 minutes of activity in. I'm going to cross that off the list. So having a way to track your progress on your new habits becomes really satisfying, at least for me. I hope it might for some of you as well. But you can find what ultimately makes you satisfied to complete that. It makes you feel satisfied after completing that habit. And there's, a lot of this kind of comes into, the basic, some very basic like biological needs, like cues, cravings, response, and reward. So a lot of this kind of feeds into all of that. But I have had a lot of fun using this app. It also collects data, so you get nice little graphics on how you're doing with all of your new habits as you cross them off, and all that kind of fun things. All those kind of fun things. So I'm sure Courtney, our data loving marketer, will love the graphics on on that side of on that tracker. But one of the examples that Claire gives in his book for making it satisfying is he was talking about an area in Asia where hand washing wasn't a thing, and people just didn't want to do it. But they started giving out a soap that had a really pleasing feel and a really pleasing like aroma to it. And all of a sudden, hand washing increased greatly because people just thought that it was very satisfying. So if you're trying to change a habit, finding a way to make it satisfying is probably going to help it stick. So just to summarize, make sure you have a clear vision of who you're trying to become, and even if it's just, it can be very simple or it can be more elaborate. But if you're wanting to become Jillian, if you're wanting to become more like Courtney, our data loving marketer, or if there's a sports hero that you can put in there and fill in the blank, by doing this action, am I going to become more like this person? And that visualization and asking yourself that question will really help you have a good foundation before tackling some of these laws, which are making it obvious, making it attractive, making it easy, and making it satisfying. All right, so that's kind of an overview. I have a question here. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. A link to the book. Excellent. Thank you, Courtney. Does anybody have any questions or want to share any experiences with like creating new habits, and how we were kind of talking about some of those earlier, but anything that kind of stuck with you in the topics and kind of your day-to-day? Or
I have a quick question. So in that app you use, you incorporate your personal and your professional habits, to-do list, whatever, or is it more personally focused?
Oh, I do both. That's why it's color-coded. So, for some of my personal habits, I've got it color-coded, and then I've got spiritual goals in there. I've got, personal goals, and then I've also got work-related items. And it's real easy. I love that app, and it's real easy to use. I'm more than happy to, I can put that screenshot up again if you want to check it out. It's just called Done, and it's fabulous.
So is that how you measure your improvements to meet that like 1% a day and things like that? I mean, how do you validate that metric over time?
Yeah, it's definitely, I track it. I track what I can every day, and then week by week, I go through and I look at it, and I can see my progress and see how I'm, now is it 37 times? Maybe not, but it's enough that I can start to see the progress. And when you can visualize that, I think it kind of helps push you even further, and the longer that you do it, then you can start, you can set goals, but again, your habits are what are going to get you there. It's not the goal, and the other thing too is it's more, it's more about the journey than the destination. I mean, I think it kind of aligns with that as well. Like if you can find enjoyment along the way, if you can really start finding ways to make your habits feel good and, more satisfying, then you're going to continue to make progress. And, that first year that you're focusing on a particular habit, not even, when you start tracking what you're doing, it's amazing. Like it can really change your behaviors pretty quickly. And it may not even take a year for you to make a real difference. Like it might just take like a couple of weeks of you tracking it. And then all of a sudden it becomes part of your daily routine, and it's ingrained. And so it doesn't take tracking it the way that you do. Huh?
It's eye-opening, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It is.
What were you going to say?
If you've ever gone into your phone and it shows you like where you spend your time, oh my gosh, right? You're like, oh, there's all my time.
I go through I definitely remove apps from my phone, like social media stuff. And I find that stuff like really distracting. Like I have a really hard time like getting out of it. So to change a lot of my habits, like when I started really looking at my time, how much I'm spending, that just kind of sealed the deal for me. Once I saw some of that information, I was like, okay, I need to really get rid of some of these distractions and focus on what I really want to do, what I'm really trying to become, in my work life, in my personal life, my spiritual life, and I have different people that I kind of visualize of, maybe a little bit of, little Jillian here, a little bit of Pema Chodron here. She's a Buddhist writer I love. So I kind of I have different people I'm trying to work towards. And then I have, I have habits that kind of align with each of those things. Like, right now, like one thing that I wanted to spend more time in is some of the data analytics stuff. I think, with my current role, for a while there, it was more like focusing on training and getting my people, like I had some new professional services consultants that I was trying to work with and get them up to speed. So a lot of my goals focused more on spending time with them, making sure that they were getting what they needed to be successful in their role. And then once they started getting more successful, it was like, and they knew the role, they knew what they were doing, and I wasn't as involved. And then I realized, okay, I need to start looking more at the analytics, because I kind of let some of that stuff slide because I was, focusing in this area. And so now I have a goal, to spend, or I have that new habit that I'm creating is to spend a little more time in the analytics. So not just, not just focusing on generating the data, but it's now getting into the analytics side. So when you really focus on your habits, like you'll make progress really quickly. And then it's like, you often have to kind of reset. You've got to, okay, so now this is working. This is part of, my process. Now I've got to shift things a little bit. And that's pretty exciting too. When you realize that I've outgrown one thing, I need to change to another.
I have a process question. So as it relates to what you want to accomplish in CRM, I have a hard time backing out of my goal to identify what habits I need to develop to complete it. So what's your process for that?
So can you give me kind of an example of a goal that you might be working towards?
Sure. So it's kind of all encompassing. Everybody's got the data problem, and that there's, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And that data cleanup and capturing all of that is part of a data strategy plan that I'm trying to put together for the company so that other users know what processes to follow. And then for the marketing team to implement the automation part of it and generate SF330s from that. So they're really big tasks because they just implemented a year ago, but they're also really young. I mean, it's only a 9-year-old firm. So I'm not overwhelmed by the amount of data they have. It's where to start.
So that's a really interesting challenge. If you're talking specifically, I'm trying to get the data that I need for the SF330 form. That's kind of where I'd start. Is it's like, how do I get complete data for this form? So when I start generating them, I have everything I need. So I would say generating a report that has all the fields that you need for that form. Start there and have a starting point so that you can tell your team, like, okay, so here's where we're starting as far as level of completeness with all of our project records, and then where we need to get to in order, and yeah, 100% is always good, but then you can break it down from there. So look for the fields, and it depending on your team and kind of depending on how they approach things, and Courtney, feel free to kind of weigh into with your experience, but sometimes you have to get real small at first because it can be really overwhelming for people. Maybe it's, maybe you focus on 3 fields that everybody's entering in, and you get those completed, and then you kind of expand it out. Because if you tell people, like, I need you to stop and give me like all, 27 of the fields of data, like right now, it can be a little bit too much for people. So you just kind of have to figure out, and sometimes, start small and you can always add there. Typically, like, when we're working on implementations, people have these really big goals and they have a lot of things that they want to do and a lot of things they want to get out of the system. We spend a lot of time dialing those back and getting down to, like, what are the core fields that you really need? And then build from there. So maybe it's just your problem in some ways may not be, it seems really big, but it may not be when you break it down into the different pieces and start kind of building strategy for how to get to the next point. It's not as bad as it seems, but you definitely have to, I think, kind of, you have a clear idea of where you're going. So you're trying, where you're trying to go. I think using a report as a way to, and being able to give a metric to it so people can tell that you're progressing on your goal. Like right now, we have 17% of the data that we need out of, all of our, but let's work to get to 30%, and you can set goals that way. And then the habits to get there is, when people, maybe there's a workflow that reminds people, when a project's at 25% complete, they need to go into the system, and, maybe they need to go in the system and start updating certain fields. And they need to make, and maybe, so there's a couple of ways that you could approach that, but it's definitely, if you have executive buy-in as well into getting some of that information complete, and then having a way to a metric that can support how far or how close you are, how far away you are to that goal, I think is really helpful to getting everybody on the same page. Because sometimes it's like they want to help you, but they're not sure how they can and how close they are to being helpful. And I think when you can summarize it and get it distilled down to, a percentage completion or anything, any kind of metric, it's going to help you be able to communicate that to your team and get them on board. Any other thoughts, Courtney? Am I gonna...
No, I mean, I think you're right on. I think that when we take on new clients, we go through that process of, okay, so what is it that you want to achieve? And they rattle off this long, big list. And then we go, okay, let's prioritize it and get it down to the 3 things that we're going to focus on. And they'll try to derail, but then we go, nope, we're only working on 3 things or whatever that is for this specific client. But I agree with everything that you said.
Yeah, those SF330 forms, like those have a ton of data, you know, like people people underestimate that form, but there are times where I look at it, I'm like, this is a really beautiful, I know that sounds crazy, but it's a really beautiful form. I mean, like in some ways, because they were able to figure out a way to take so much information and distill it down to like a few pages. And it's, you know, and I have to give them kind of props. That's, you know, that's kind of amazing in a way to figure out a way to do that. That matrix on there is a pain in the butt and I hate it, but it's kind of brilliant at the same time. So
Yeah. That's the part I'm looking to automate so that I don't have to like hunt and peck through one of those ever again.
Well, in Cosential, they do have the SF330 form in the system. A lot of times the way that clients use it is they'll use the publisher module to generate their resumes and their project profiles and that kind of thing. But what they'll do is they'll use that SF330 as kind of a draft. So they can kind of see what they've got and see how it looks in the form. And then from there, and then they'll you know, generate their other documents. So kind of a different way of managing it.
I'll have to look for that on their help module.
I think one of the things you talked about was like the identifying the time you'll do it, the time, location, or whatever. Years ago, I co-presented with Hope Wilson, and we talked about a concept called Eat the Frog. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but Mark Twain had some crazy saying that was like, if I woke up in the morning and I ate a frog, that'd be the worst thing I did all day, or something weird like that. And it sort of created this concept of like, if you do the thing you absolutely don't want to do very first thing, get it over with, right? So I have created, and I actually teach this to all my users, something called the frog food folder, which is a folder where I keep everything in it that I need to do or update during the week. And then I block out a chunk of time. I literally sometimes call it frog time on my calendar. And then I'll get done all those things that are in that folder. So if somebody sent me some data I needed or resume or whatever it was, like, you know, whatever I need to do, I'll put it in there and then I'll block out that time and I'll do it. So sort of that concept of like creating the time for it, right? You have to block out the time for it.
That is beautiful. I love that. That is a fantastic way to handle all those kinds of requests. And I love how you time blocked and all beautiful things. Wonderful. I'm going to steal that.
There's like, if you just Google Eat the Frog, there's like there's books and there's a billion things around that concept. I just thought it was so funny that I had to use it because I love humorous stuff like that.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to have some frog space on my calendar built in, and people are going to start questioning me about that because we have like open calendars and stuff. So that's another thing. I've actually, because like I block time on there and people are like, is that a real of like, that's the other thing too. I don't know if you guys experienced that, but people are like, is that a real like event for you? Or is that like you eating lunch? You know, it's like, it's a real event and it's something I need to do and you need to back off that hour. That's mine, you know? So I've even come up with like codes and things for those, for those in my calendar so that people can see like, yes, it's a real thing. And no, you can't book over that. Like, no.
I also totally agree with the one field at a time, you know, like you were saying, you know, tackling that whole SF330, like I have one right now I'm working on, if you can believe it or not, RFP date is not a required field in my CRM system. I know, yeah, shocker. So I am in the process of trying to audit that field, and sometimes that's all I can focus on. Like that this week, that might be all I can focus on. And so that's the field this week. And then the next week it might be a different field. And then I've got to keep up with them afterwards so they become part of my task list. But sometimes it is just literally one field at a time.
I agree with that for sure. Like if we have clients who hire us to help them like be able to automate their project sheets. It's like, okay, we need to start with the basics, like project name, location, owner, all right, let's get that on the page and see where we're at and how many, or prioritize like your top 10 and that's all you're getting. You're not getting 1,000 well-populated records. So I think it is about setting those expectations. And sometimes that is where I fail in my habits, is I don't have realistic expectations of myself. And I started a visualization course through Kathy Hutchinson. I can never say her name. Is it Hutchinson? There's a missing letter in there, whatever. I always butcher her last name and it stresses me out every time I go to say it. Anyway, she has a visualization course that she has. And so I started journaling in that way and it really did like make a huge difference. This is a newer one, so it's not as colorful as they used to be because I don't have time to color anymore. And legit, I have my colors right here. So I could just open my desk and I don't even have time to open my desk now. I'll grab the other one so you can see it, but this is my Tuesday and my Wednesday, and this is my Thursday and my Friday, and I'm already getting my to-do list ready for Monday because I already know I can't get crap done because there's just too much. And so like I've started having more habits where like on a to-do list, if it doesn't get done, I arrow it to the next day, or if it became insignificant, I'll slash through it. So at least like I know visually like, okay, where am I at? So I feel like
I just want to say like you need to create a habit. You need a habit tracker on the Done app, and one needs to be saying no. And you need to set a goal of like 3 times a day, and the other one needs to be you need to delegate. You need to make a goal of 3 times.
Yeah, well, pretty much. I'm so sad.
I was just gonna say, where's the arrow for delegation?
Right.
Right. Yeah, that stuff doesn't even make it here because I've already done delegated it. Like that doesn't make it. Here we go. This is when I was much better at it. Look at that. Pretty little guy. One of my tasks needs to be color. Like just bring color back into my life. And anyway, I'll drop in her visualization course because it really did make a huge difference in like my productivity. And Megan, what you were talking about, like that accountability piece, like I can look back at this and be like, look at all the stuff I got done, because sometimes I end my day or my week and I'm like, look how many things are left and I got nothing accomplished. And my team's like, I don't think you could ever go through a day and not accomplish something. So please stop. That's just a ridiculous statement. But I feel like it's helpful.
It's called progress, not perfection. That's the term we use internally. It's progress, not perfection.
I think it's hilarious that you just said that because my team and I read books together, and the chapter that we just finished reading, Stacy, progress, not perfection.
Yeah. It's
Marie Folio's Everything is Figure Outable.
It's the reason why I don't delegate often is I think I'm going to overwhelm someone, or I don't want to, I'm trying to be perfect in everything that I do. And yeah, it's a bit of that imposter syndrome too, is all of that combined, where I constantly have to tell myself like I made progress. It's not about perfection, right? Yes.
Oh my gosh, that is real. That is real.
That I think. Hold on a second, but that is I've created. One is taking it personally. That's an area of growth that I have. Is I tend to take things personally. So I have that on there, like how many times did I not do it? So like I'll push it, and I think just stopping if you've got a way to track that, like those things that, you're perfection, like I let something go or whatever, just finding a way to, if you're trying to create a new habit like that, to keep track, to track it, to notice it. Even calling it out, like there's another, in one of the chapters, it talks about, in Japan, like, on the train system, they'll actually, when they're passing a street or something, they'll call out what they're seeing, because when they point it out, it becomes more obvious. And a lot of accidents happen because people aren't paying attention. And so when you point and call things out, you start to pay attention to it. So if you look at those habits that you have on a regular basis that are not, that are not, that you're kind of like, man, that's about, if you can start rewarding yourself for identifying when you do it, like, I found it, and I made a different choice. Or, if you can start finding a way to do that, it's really helpful to changing the habit. And I have found myself, like, when I start to go down that, where I'm thinking like, oh, this is about me, and I can, hit that button, then it reminds me that, I'm making progress on that. Like, I used to take things like that personally, but today I am not the kind of person that does that. So it helps.
That's
Found
awesome.
the eat the frog.
That makes me think of, and I don't know how many of you guys are geeks, but I'm kind of a Dune geek, and there's that Benny Gesserit saying, "The fear is the mind killer. I will not let it fear. I will let it pass over me." That I often think about that when people are trying to tell me how to do my job. That's like my mantra. It's like, I will not let it bother me. I will let it pass through me. Like, I kind of geek out like that, because you will just eat yourself alive if you let people drive you crazy telling you how to do your job. And
yeah, so I have to tell you that app becomes my spice. I'm like, yeah, I get to. I'm addicted to it now. It's bad. It's a good addiction to have. I'll have to create another habit to break that. No, just kidding. That's
Here's
a good
another
book,
one.
though. Everything is figure outable. I like that. Like, I love.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
I love
she's
her.
great. She is fantastic. Talk about a visual person to visualize. I wish I could dance like her. Good Lord.
Yeah, she's like self-help pop candy. You know what I mean? It's like you listen to her and you're like, I feel so much better. Yeah, I'm gonna go change the world.
Yeah, for sure. She's fantastic. Her business school is one that she calls it B school. And I got through like the first, 2 lessons in the first module. And my team was like, stop now. You cannot redo the entire business in a weekend. And you cannot keep learning these lessons and then like expect everything to be done. Let's shift to this idea. So I've had to push pause. I said no to B school. I didn't say no. I said not yet, not now. Because I can't say no. I just say not now.
There you go.
Not yet.
But it's really hard, especially when you have a vision of what you're trying to achieve, and especially, like you start wanting to get there quickly and figuring out, if you really focus on your habits, like you can get there much quicker. But if you're really just chasing that goal, you can do short sprints that way. You can do, but if you're for long-term performance without the burnout, you've really got to look at your habits. And at least that's what I'm learning, because I used to be able to do that. And it's like, I just can't anymore. Like, I can't do that anymore. And I have to make the most out of the time that I've got. And, I don't always get everything done, unfortunately, but I know I'm improving. And that's, like if I know that I'm improving and I'm, then I feel like I'm, then that kind of gives me some solace, but I still have that laundry list of things, and I think you hit it too, Courtney, when you said like prioritization is key. I think that's the other thing too, is making sure that you're focusing on the right things at the right time, and and making sure that your priorities are in line with what you're trying to achieve.
I had to grab the shirt. Oh, go ahead. Go, Stacey.
I was struggling a lot with finding that I was falling into the data entry realm a lot, and for a while, instead of the auditing, performing analytics. And so I actually wrote an article called Data Auditing versus Data Editing. So, and kind of define those two things. And
do you have
the
link to that?
I do. It's on the SMPS Oregon website. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah. Please do.
But yeah, but then I sent it to every one of my marketers on my team, my users, my CRM users, and I said, just want to be clear, this is what I expect of you, and this is what you should expect of me. And I said, I expect you to do the data editing, and I will do the data auditing, and that's the deal I make with you. And it really did actually change. A lot of my marketers were like, oh, now I know what she does. Like, that was really eye-opening for them, and it reminded me that it wasn't my job to do the data editing.
Yes. Well done, girl. It's interesting the power in stating what you need and what you want. Like, I came to my team about 3 weeks ago on a team call, and I got back from vacation, and there was just mounds of stuff waiting for me, and I had this moment of like, oh my God, there's only 24 hours in a day, and I literally cannot work all 20 of them all the time, because I will try to. And so I went to my team and I just said, hey, I need help. I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know what help looks like, but I know I need it. So what can you, and they had great ideas, but the very first step was saying what you need. Like, I did the same thing with this business coach. I was like, what I need now is this. And they were like, then I can do that. And I mean, it was just like giving them direction and it's like when your kids need boundaries, like this is, and even as adults, we need boundaries. Like, we need definition in our life.